So we can go ahead and start, Russ. I'd like to introduce Russ Sorrells. He's a Pinnacle guide. Russ and I'll let him talk a little about his background. So Russ, what did you do before you were a Pinnacle guide?
Well, so I've built, bought, and sold 6 businesses in my career. I started out as an engineer at Cummins Engine Company in Columbus, Indiana. My first business was a machine shop, and that was in my garage, called Dynamic Products Incorporated. So I went from there to start a manufacturer's rep agency. I bought a laundromat. I owned a car wash and oil change facility. Along the way, I built a manufacturer's rep business here in the Carolinas, and have several real estate holdings and companies. So kind of a little, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad many years ago, and I took it to heart. So,
hey Russ, one other question. Have you ever taken your Colby? I'd be interested to know what your Colby is.
Yeah, I am I'm 7463.
7463. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I like to study things, but I do take action. So, but I'm not good at follow through, man.
That's a 46. Well, I'm a 5392. So I tend to be, I was thinking you might be higher on the quick start to me with all those businesses. With that said, I'll let you go and Pinnacle, just to talk about the coaches of Pinnacle real quick. Russ is a good example of what I would consider the great coaches of Pinnacle. He's a coach with a lot of business background, a lot of experience. He coaches at a high level and gets a lot of results. So I was very happy to actually, I sort of talked myself into the group with Greg Cleary. So hopefully, but it's really, I've been learning a lot from me and Russ have hung out together. And every time I hang out with Russ, I learn something new, and I want to share them with our clients because he's just this fabulous source of inspiration and knowledge, which is really what you really need to really get change. You got to be inspired, but then you got to have knowledge and you got to do, right? So inspiration, knowledge, and execution. With that said, Russ, I'll let you take it over as my assistant makes a shake for me. I'll mute myself.
All right. Well, I appreciate your kind words and the opportunity to share with your community. So just to get started, so when we talk about the idea of implementing a business operating system into our business, the goal is to, number one, eliminate chaos and complexity, right? So we start a business and we're just doing whatever it takes, right? We do whatever it takes to get going, and before we know it, we decide, we're going to start a business to run it, and then soon enough, it's running us. So we want to replace the complexity and the chaos with simplicity and prioritization. And that's what we do when we implement a business operating system. So today's concept, though, we want to talk about something that I call turning pro. And I've got a workshop, just a few slides that I want to take your community through and have them just really wrap their mind around if you decided today to turn pro, what's the mindset, and what are some of the steps that you could take to move yourself closer to turning pro from an execution perspective. So I'm going to share a presentation that I created here, just a few slides, and I don't want to take a ton of time, and want to keep this concise for your community. Can you see that okay? Got it? Thumbs up?
Yes, sir. Looks perfect.
Oh, okay. All right. Excellent.
We had a blender in the background, so I muted myself.
Oh, okay. Awesome. All right. So step one, if we're going to turn pro, is we've got to decide to win. If you think about the winners, and oftentimes the turning pro concept, we tend to go towards sports. We gravitate towards sports because that is a tangible example of a team that has decided to turn pro. So we think Alabama and the dynasty that has been built down there by Nick Saban. We think about the Patriots of the 90s and 2000s, and what Belichick and Brady, what they were able to accomplish. I'm a Colts fan, and we never had a dynasty necessarily, but Peyton Manning, he exemplified turning pro. And so when we decide to win, that's step number one. When we we want to turn pro. So we've got to go all in. So this turning pro concept is really about going all in, making the decision, and then making a plan. So it's one thing to have the idea that, hey, well, I want to win, but what's the plan to win and execute on a day-to-day basis? We want to surround ourselves with winners. This is probably the bigger challenge that we have. Whenever we make that decision to win, we then have to align ourselves with winners. And that could be in our peer groups, the people that we're connecting with on a regular basis. There are any number of places that we can go to find other winners that are going to help us to get better. And I don't mean winning as in someone's better than necessarily. That's not my point. My point is that when you're around people that have a mindset that you are going for, it's certainly going to permeate, become a part of who we are. So we want to put our ego in our pocket. Oftentimes as leaders, we can think it's about us and this whole turning pro concept, deciding to win. We've got to have a team, right? We don't win on our own. We don't win by ourselves. So it's important that we take our ego and we put it in our pocket and leave it there so that we can get input from the team and we can then move the team forward based on what makes the most sense as opposed to what we want to do as leaders. We want to steady our business. What's that?
I was going to say, yeah, those are great points if you want to go back to. I do believe when you say surround yourself with winners, it's really important to put yourself in a great peer group. Because unfortunately, whether you like it or not, the peer group is going to have a really big influence on you. And that includes business owners. I was first introduced to that from Dan Sullivan with Strategic Coach. And what he did is he segregated his groups by income level. And I never realized how powerful that was until I participated in it. And as you went there and put your ego in the pocket is probably the best advice, all of us have to remind ourselves of, especially business owners, because we tend to think we know it and we can always be a student. But I'll let you continue. But those are great points. Thank you.
Amen to that. Yeah. Thank you feel free to chime in for sure on any of this. Jim Rohn always said that we are the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. So those peer groups are critical. And I always say that there are 4 things that every business owner should have. Number 1 is a peer group. Be involved in a peer group, whether that's the Entrepreneurs Organization, Vistage, a mastermind, or I launched cohorts. So doing those type of peer groups. We also want to make sure that we have a coach, someone that's going to guide us, help us, kick us in the tail, pick us up. Number 3 is we need an operating system so that we can consistently deliver value to our clients and our customers, and then consistently execute at a team level as well. And then the 4th thing is to have a CFO, whether that's a fractional CFO or full-time CFO. It's important. Most of the clients that I work with, they don't know the numbers. And we often talk about what's that path to profitability or what's the path to increased profitability. So those are the 4 things that I encourage my leaders to surround themselves with in order to continue to grow and ratchet up that journey. I know you can appreciate the fractional CFO comment there.
Appreciate the plug. Thank you.
Right on. So step number 2 is study your business. So you got to know your numbers. We've got to know as leaders what our numbers are. Too often, again, it's we look at the checkbook and we're like, all right, we got money. We're going 1 more month. But if we know our numbers, it's going to help us to understand, especially from an industry comparison, and then the investment that we can make in continuing to grow and add more value for our clients. We need to know our why. It's important that our purpose is driving us and getting us up out of bed every morning. And that's what pros do, right? They've got a why. They've got a deep purpose for getting them out, because let's face it, it's a slog, right? So to win consistently is a slog. It's actually kind of boring. I always say chop wood, carry water. And later on, one of the slides, we talk about being consistent and showing up consistently as well. So we've got to identify who's going with us on our team, what type of person, what does the ideal teammate look like for our business? And then how do we know when we've arrived? So how are we going to explain that to our colleagues or to the people that we're bringing on board? Is, what does it look like from the top, or what we call, of course, in Pinnacle, what does it look like from our pinnacle? We need to study
Yeah.
our market. This is step 3. So who is your ideal customer? What are the market trends? So this could be if you are in Greenville, South Carolina, as an example, what's going on in your market? If that's the market you serve, it's important to understand what the trends are in that market. I know, we were just downtown there in Greenville, and the construction is just, and I know it's been blowing up for a decade, but it's just amazing to see and witness the transformation that's going on in that market. So understanding your market really from a Turning Pro perspective is critical. How do you connect with your customers? Is there a unique way? Is there another way? What are the options for connecting in your market? And then do your products and services align with your customers' needs? So again, reflecting on the market and how can we make sure that our offerings are aligned with our needs. Anything there to add?
Russ, I think know your numbers is really critical, but also you need to know what's producing your numbers, right? So the thing is everyone's always focused on the bottom line. What was my profitability, or what is our realization, or what is our utilization, these key performance indicator, but we need to really understand what drives that. And sometimes, that's why knowing a number, right? If your team knows their number, then basically they can reduce it. And the big thing on market trends, that's 100% correct. I mean, I was listening to a podcast last night. I think one of the ones you recommended, and the guy was talking about this guy was doing everything right, but he was marketing to newspapers, and he couldn't understand why his numbers were going down. And then finally, he realized, hey, the newspaper market's shrinking. So the thing is I am marketing to a customer that's really cutting everything and can't really grow their business. So, and then he switched over to another market, I think, and right before COVID blew up, or right during COVID, and made millions of dollars because it was a thirsty market. So you want a thirsty market or a very hungry market.
Yes, he in that same podcast or book, he was telling a story about if you have a hot dog cart, what is the best indicator of your success if you want to sell out of your hot dogs? And so he asked this as a professor, asked the students, and the students said, one said location, the other said, quality of product, and so after they all finished, the professor says, hey, what we need are hungry hot dog eaters, right? We need a crowd of hungry people, and we're guaranteed to sell out, right? So if you are after a concert, or you're after a bar hours let out, and you've got thousands of people flocking the streets, you're going to certainly sell out of your hot dog. So yeah, we've got to know our markets. We got to go where the business is. So study your industry. So of course, our business is unique. The market in which we serve is unique, and the industry that we are in are unique. So what are the industry trends? Again, the market is local. That's where you're serving. What's going on in that market? But from an industry perspective, if you're in real estate, what are the trends in real estate? If you are in accounting, what are your trends in accounting? If you're in construction, what are the trends in construction? So what's going on specifically in your industry? And then how do your products line up? If you look at the industry as a whole, are there gaps? Is there something that is starting that you are not participating in? And maybe obviously there's the bleeding edge and there's the cutting edge, and we don't want to be on the bleeding edge necessarily, but certainly knowing what's going on in our industry can help ensure that we're relevant for the long term. And then how are we applying these other technologies in our business? So what other technology? So you and I, at dinner the other night, we talked about GPT, and then at a Vistage event that I was at last week, we talked about Chat GPT. And then before that, so it's everyone's talking about Chat GPT and how to apply it in our business. So that's a technology. How does it apply to your business? And then think down the road.
Russ,
Russ,
real quick. Here's a special gift for anyone on talking about know your industry. Anyone who will send Jay Lindsay, put your name in the chat at Meilinger.us. We use something in business valuations called IBIS reports, which really digs in deep into the industry you're in. And if you want a complimentary IBIS report, if you'll just send an email to Jay Lindsay, thank you, at Meilinger.us, we will get you a free IBIS report, which is a really good intelligence and for your industry. And if you want to review that with Russ, I'm sure, or me, we'll gladly do a review with you on that too. So
so those reports are awesome, priceless. I mean, so doing that on a regular basis, getting that IBIS report and doing that comparison, that's awesome. That's a great offer.
that was my quick start for a promotion for anyone on the line. If you're watching this, most of the people actually watched. A lot of people watch these after when we record them and edit them. But if you're on the recording too, please feel free to reach out to Jay Lindsay. Tell us what industry you're in. An NAICS code would be nice because we can pull it by that and we'll get it to you.
Awesome. So then the last point here on this slide is think 3, 5, 10 years down the road. What's going on in your industry? What's going to happen? What are the trends? Is it going to be relevant? Is it going to be replaced? Like, what's going on? Too often we get our blinders on and we can't see the forest through the trees. But when we can get out and really get some perspective on our industry, it can help us position our company for the long term. Next is practice your craft. Until this drives me crazy. Companies are winging it. So from a sales perspective, they're winging it. Instead of having a strategy and a methodology, they're letting their salespeople just go out there and sell however they want to sell. Whatever works, man. Whatever works. I worked with some great companies throughout my career, and one of them in particular, I sold for a decade. I was the top salesperson, sold more than any person by a double. I mean, it was significant, and it was, they were a great company and they had a great product, and I learned how to sell it. And nobody ever asked me, "Hey, Russ, what are you doing differently?" Now, I was a manufacturer's representative, so I didn't work directly for them, but no one ever said, "Hey, man, what are you doing differently?" And I would have gladly shared with them my strategy and methodology for selling, but no one asked. But it was very intentional. It was very thought out. It was very methodical. It wasn't just, I showed up and winged it. I had a plan. So just not only with sales, but with executing in our business, if we're going to have a conversation, we need to practice as a leader. So just really let's practice our craft and stop winging it. Establish best practices in your organization. Really, there's someone in your business, maybe in your practice, that's doing it better than everyone else. How about we sit down with them, we get their recipe, and we make that the best practice for the entire organization? Doesn't that make sense? If we're going to consistently deliver value and level up, that's the strategy. Again, this is the who does it best concept in our organization, and really maybe in our industry. Who can we peg? Who can we identify? Who can help us to get better and grow? And then get a regular practice schedule. And this is taken serious. So when we are, again, working with salespeople, this is the easiest example, is salespeople should practice. We've got, in Pinnacle, I lead the Pinnacle practice. And the reason that we do that is we want to put our money where our mouth is. We tell our clients to practice. So we want to make sure that we are practicing. So we hop on a call every 2 weeks and we practice our audition. We practice how we're communicating and sharing the message of Pinnacle to our clients. So that, again, we're not just showing up and being like, "Hey guys, what's going on? Here's what I do, blah, 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 blah." So anything to add to that?
No, I think all that stuff. Well, being a non-quick start, I'm guilty. I have to tell you, I'm sort of guilty of the winging it a lot. So, but what I've learned, especially in sales, when we follow a process, it works. Period. I've been through a lot of sales training. They always talk about take an hour and a half before the meeting and actually plan the meeting. What are you going to talk about? All that. And when we do that consistently, the results go through the roof, right? It's
Amen. So that's the big thing is visualization, right? So that's what we often lose sight of, is the power of our visualization. The reason that we identify what our pinnacle is, what our 7-year pinnacle is we want to visualize it. What does it look like? We have gotten to that pinnacle. What does it look like from the top? How does it feel? And when we do that, it activates as I'm sure you are aware of, the reticular activating system, the RAS, as it's called. So that's the system in our brain that when we buy a white Honda Odyssey, we suddenly realize that every other vehicle on the road is a white Honda Odyssey. So that reticular activating system, it triggers it for seeing something that we hadn't been looking for previously, but it also does it as far as moving us closer toward our objectives, because we have visualized an ideal outcome for that sales meeting, or we visualized an ideal outcome for a meeting we've got with one of our teammates when we're sharing with them some feedback on how their performance is and what we expect of them. So there are many ways that we can leverage the power of creating that vision, but it's just a matter of being intentional about taking the time, as you said, and making that plan. All right, we're going to keep rocking. So we got to keep score. Too often we are not keeping score. The way I love to explain this is, imagine that we go to a basketball game, we get there in the third quarter, and there are no scoreboards. So we have no idea what the score is. And we watch some great plays. Maybe there's an alley-oop or a fast break and some three-pointers, and it's just, maybe they're playing amazing, but we're going to lose interest because there is no scoreboard. We don't know what's going on. We do that to our teams because our teams have no idea. Frequently, they have no idea. Are we winning? Are we losing? And so we want to make sure that our team knows if they are winning or what the score is and where we are in our performance. So keeping score is really critical to keep our teammates' attention. What does winning look like for your organization? Again, it's important that we get that out there. We document it. What does winning specifically for the numbers look like? And then let's review it on a regular basis, daily, weekly, monthly. Did we win the day? Did we win the week? Did we win the month? This seems overwhelming to people, but I'm not saying keep track of 10 numbers. I'm saying, what are the 2 or 3 levers that really matter for your business and can ensure that you are moving toward your bigger objectives and goals? Does that make sense?
Yes. And also, I think it is important to define what actually scoring is, and the best example I heard, I think, was in the 4 disciplines of execution, where they talked about everyone, all the guys, and we've all been at a basketball goal where people are just shooting around, and all of a sudden someone says, "Hey, let's play a game of 21," which is a individual game. And then all of a sudden, the whole demeanor changes, right? All of a sudden, Mike, I start fouling you because I'm really slow. The fouls start going, people start pushing it, and it just becomes a very intense game because we're keeping score. But the biggest thing, what I see in organizations, we misdefine what scoring is. Like a lot of times, to take your football game analogy, it's like, we have a lot of Clemson fans here, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And my team is mostly Clemson fans. Like, I think there's 2 South Carolina fans here of the 18, 20 people. And so 3, my wife is one too. With that said, we think maybe we're counting total yards, right? Like Clemson in their bowl game against Tennessee, they dominated time of possession. They dominated total yards, but they never got the ball across the end zone. You got to define what actually scoring is, because if you track the wrong thing, like we've tracked a lot of times in our business, we've tracked the wrong thing. We've tracked utilization, realization. Hey, we really need to track projects completed, right? Because project completed is when we actually score, right? So
absolutely.
Anyway.
Yes, no, you're exactly right. And that's so, but when we are working on our business, so if we went back a few steps and we're thinking about our business and we're thinking about what we need to do to move our business forward, that's when that score concept comes to us. What are some different ways that I can measure progress, or we can measure progress, and it be tangible, it'd be easy. Oftentimes we try to measure stuff that's not measurable, or we have a list of 10 things that we're going to measure, and that's just overwhelming for our team. It's like, that's why I always say, just identify the 2 or 3 things that really move the needle for your business and just focus on those and monitor those, the things that really matter, like you said. All right, so we've got to establish standards. So what are the standards that are, again, we talked about best practices, but these are the standards that we expect everyone to adhere to in our organization. So we want to make sure that we document our business. So identify the standards, and then we document our business. As you know, Mike, in your world, from a valuation perspective, when a documented business, it actually sells for more, right? A business that has an operating system, and a business that has documented, and a business that has a leadership team will sell for multiples higher than a business that does not have those three things. So when we're thinking about turning pro, we're also thinking about our exit strategy. And professional businesses will sell for substantially higher valuations than businesses that are not professional. If you're winging it,
Russ, one thing
Yes, sir.
that people need to realize is the whole business valuation and the sellability of businesses is completely changing. Like in my industry, accounting, right? You could sell any crappy accounting practice for somewhere between 0.8 revenue to 1.25 revenue, and or 3 times seller discretion. There was no doubt. Now, what people are realizing, if you don't establish a vision for what your practice should look like, and you need to, it's not going to sell. I see accounting practices on the market now, 9 months, 12 months. They're in hot areas, but they never establish a vision, like you talked about, of who's the client, who's the ideal client that we're serving, how are we serving them? And they've never built what now in our business that they're saying the most critical thing you could do is build a bench with that sports analysis. Who do you got on your bench that when you step out, we don't need you, right? So the thing is, so that's really important now, because the whole market, because of the technology, because of the competition, is changing. So you really need to turn pro quick. And the first thing you need to do is one of the things, what will we sell for, and what will we sell, and why will they buy it? Right?
Yeah. Again, it's establishing that vision. What does the end look like? When I'm turning around, I'm going to hand the keys off to someone else. What does it look like? What have we built? What have we done? Who's coming up? Who can we grow? That I always say that we start a business for 2 reasons. One is we want time freedom, and the second is we want financial freedom. And often we end up with neither because we are the business. So the idea of documenting a business is that we are going to turn our business into an asset that serves us, and then as opposed to a prison in which we serve, which is often what we get ourselves into as ambitious owners, as you know. So.
Oh, yes.
So we've got to hold the team accountable to those standards. So we've established the standards, we've documented the business. Now we've got to make sure that everyone's following through and doing the work. So here are some general ideal areas to focus on documenting your business. First, sales. I'm big into sales. Sales is what drives everything in our organization. So we want to make sure that we've got a consistent and repeatable sales process, because that's going to drive the revenue that's going to pay the bills over the long term. So having a credible or really robust sales process is critical. Onboarding. So we got a new team member. Are we just going to throw a computer at them and say, hey, go after it, get it? We'll check in with you, at your yearly review, or do we have an intentional process where we welcome someone into the organization, we take them through, we have them spend time with areas throughout the organization so they have a big picture view of what's going on, and then how their role is going to impact. Offboarding. So we've got someone that's going out. What does that process look like? How do we get an understanding of how we made an impression on this person that is leaving our organization? Hiring. What is our hiring process? Think about bringing a new client into your business. What does that onboarding process look like? Is it welcoming? Is it professional? So, there are any number of areas in our business that we just need to document and then follow the process. And that gets us again away from that winging it strategy. Number 8 is innovate. Innovate. So we must continuously reinvent our product or service. Too often we don't do this. Even as service, as a coach, I say, man, how can I apply the AI? How is artificial intelligence going to help me be a better coach and have a better impact on my clients? I said, well, maybe just studying it and sharing that knowledge with my clients is a place to start. So that's what I've been doing. I've been getting really into ChatGPT. I've been trying to figure out how I can use it to create copy. How do I prompt it the right way to get the output that I'm looking for? And then I want to take those lessons to my clients. So that's just a small example of how we can continue to innovate and iterate to bring more value to our clients. So it's how do we continually increase our value? And the reason this is so important, Mike, is because everyone else is doing it. Our competition, they're doing it, right? They're looking for ways to increase value. They're looking for ways to offer services on top of the service that they're already providing so that they can increase the value that they are delivering to their clients. And that's ultimately our role, is how do we continually expand the value of service or the product that we are delivering. And we've got to limit distractions. So if we want to be the best, if you want to be the best CFO, CPA in the world, then we've got to be, focus in on being the best CFO, CPA firm that exists. One of the companies that I had or was a part of for many years was a prosthetics and orthotics company. And we went in to say, we're going to be the world's best because we're going to focus in on what matters most for delivering an exceptional prosthetic and orthotic for our clients. And we're just a small company of 12 people, but that was our focus. We didn't try to get into wheelchairs or walkers or any other distractions that took us away from being able to maximize the value that we delivered to our client. And there's so many opportunities in the world today that we can bolt on this process and this and that to our current offering. And ultimately, it can dilute us and take away from the value that we're able to really bring to our clients. So staying focused is critical. Anything to add to that? Any thoughts?
I agree 100% with you. I mean, one thing we did, and I shared on the Pinnacle website, was a little presentation on how the mighty fall and how the small stay small. And the biggest thing was this obsession with just growing at anything, any product, anything, and the third thing was, not looking at the risk, but that's what we see with small businesses all the time. The biggest thing that I believe is going to be a key indicator of a company's success is the ability to get their team to focus on what's important. There's a great book called Deep Work by Cal Newport. And then there's a lot of classes talking about how the ability for people to focus has really been greatly reduced with social media, with the cell phone and different things like that. And I really feel that deep focus and deep intent, especially when you're meeting with clients. One thing I suggest people do is when you're meeting with a client, turn your phone on airplane mode or focus mode. Josh has taught me focus mode on the Apple. And just listening to that client and focusing on. But I do agree.
When I was back in my sales days, I would leave my phone in the car, so I wasn't tempted to check it when I was in with my client. Right. So limiting access is the best way. It's like if you want to go on a diet, it's best that you eliminate your ice cream and cookies in your house if that is what you choose to do or want to get away from. So. Certainly avoiding those distractions, staying focused. You're exactly right. Focus is a superpower nowadays. Step number 9, always another level. So we want to plan our growth and realize that there's always another level. You think about, again, let's talk about a professional organization, Nick Saban's Alabama Crimson Tide, like them, love them, hate them, whatever. They have obsessed over another level. Or if we're, for our Clemson fans, we've got Dabo Sweeney, again, a great leader, and he is focused in on how do we continually level up the quality of our organization, the quality of players that we've got, the quality of game plan that we've got, the quality of exercise routine, the quality of nutrition, the quality of everything that makes a winning program. They are obsessing over every detail. So we want to plan that growth out. So I call the 7-3-1-90 plan. Sometimes in Pinnacle, we'll call it the strategic vision and execution plan, but we've got our 7-year Pinnacle, we've got our 3-year milestones, we've got our 1-year detailed plan, and then we've got our 90-day sprints that we break that 1-year plan into. So we're getting together on a regular basis, we're reviewing the plan, we're revising the plan, and then we're holding each other accountable to executing the plan. And so with the belief, again, that there's always another level, and we are going to continually and regularly be pursuing that next level of growth with our plan. We need to lead by example. So us as leaders of an organization, we've got to lead by example, or even if you're a manager. So we've got, as a manager, we can lead our team, and it's important that we lead by example, helping them to see what we are doing, the investment that we're making to continually grow and get better, getting around our peers, hiring coaches, implementing system strategies, reading books, taking courses, getting involved in different masterminds and other groups that are going to continually help us to level up as leaders. And then we want to define and communicate. This again is an area, so we don't keep score enough. And Mike, we don't communicate enough. It's important as leaders, we say, here's where we're going, here's where we're going, here's where we're going. And oh, by the way, here's where we're going. We got to do that daily, weekly, monthly, every opportunity we have with our team to communicate to them what the expectations are, and then where we are going is absolutely critical. So any thoughts, any other things to add to another level?
No, I agree 100% with you, is that the biggest thing, define and communicate. That's where a lot of times I know I fall short, because we think we communicate it once and then, we think it's done. And a lot of times you've got to over communicate. You got to over communicate the vision. You got to over communicate where you are, and always another level. I mean, I was just talking to my, my super key employee, and she was like, "You're always sort of unhappy," and I was like, "No. You see that I'm not. It's just that one is I see what's going on in the business. I see the challenges out there." And so, one thing I always tell myself is, hey, the problems I have today as a business owner are the dreams of the guy who started the business owner. So I'm always thankful. But you got to always go to another level, because you're 100% correct. There is, if whatever business you're in, there's someone in a garage that's crafting the perfect bullet to kill your business. And we see, and you've got to be the guy who's adopting the technologies, bringing it out to your customers. So sometimes even in accounting, that 90-day plan becomes super critical, because, in 90 days, you've got to execute. And the thought is you might, like you said, have to get together with your coach on that next 90-day, and you might just have to reassess your plan, because the way the technologies are going and the competitive market is going and the economy, you've got to be nimble enough to change, pivot, and then execute.
Absolutely. Yeah, amen to that. You made a great point, and it made me think, if I were to add an additional bullet point here, it would be self-awareness. So us as leaders or as individuals, just continually becoming more self-aware. So your team was giving you feedback on how they perceived you were showing up from their perspective, right? And when Brenda and I were, my wife's Brenda, Brenda, but so we were at dinner the other day, and I was telling her, I was given some feedback to someone that has a new business that they're starting, and they sent me their business plan, and I, just giving feedback, and I said, I didn't hear back, and I wonder if I upset them, and I reached out again to say, hey, any questions, any other thoughts? My intent was pure, my heart was in the right spot. But she said, well, what did you do to build them up? What did you do to help them? I'm like, well, I didn't really do anything to build them up. They asked me for feedback. So I was giving them feedback on their presentation to help them be better. And she said, well, maybe and she said, I've seen you do this many times, I understand that you want to help someone, but you've also got to say, hey, this is a great presentation. It looks great. I'm excited about what you're doing. And this has got to be really exciting for you. Here are some areas that you might improve that or change that. And it's one of those V8 moments that I had with her helping me to be more self-aware about how I'm showing up when others ask for advice and guidance. So step number 10, show up and lead. So showing up is the majority of what matters, right? So I think the next bullet point is 90% of success is consistency. I bore my people, or I talk ad nauseum about chop wood, carry water, chop wood, carry water, chop wood, carry water. So if we just do that and we show up consistently and execute at a high level, we are going to win in the market, especially if we continue to innovate, if we continue to set standards, if we're keeping score, if we are encouraging others in the organization to follow our lead. Really important. And then it's a function of doing the work as well, right? So we want to show up and lead. When we do the work, others will see us as leaders doing the work. And then that will say, hey, you know what? The leaders aren't above doing whatever it takes to get the job done. And that's why I say the leader sets the pace. I think, a friend of mine, he had a chiropractic firm and he was giving me grief, or not giving me grief. He was just lamenting about how his team just seemed to not care and were very lackadaisical. And I said, well, tell me about your routine. Tell me about what happens. He said, well, I get to work generally about 8:45, 9 o'clock in the morning. So what time does your team get there? He said, well, they get there at 8. And I said, well, when's your first client show up? He said, generally about 8:30. Like, well, that's it, brother. Say no more. You're not showing up, and your team is already there, and they're having to make excuses for you not being there. And he changed. He started showing up before his team showed up. So he got there at 7:45, and his business transformed as a result of that. So, again, our people are watching us. They're watching our every move as leaders. And so to not think so is naive. They are absolutely paying attention to everything that we are doing as leaders. Anything to add there, Mike?
I agree with you. I think you've got to show up. I think one of the best videos I've ever seen on showing up is Macklemore did a small concerts for NPR, and it's probably the best example of showing up. It's still one of my favorite songs because of that when I'm working out, because it always reminds me, hey, show up, right? But he's probably singing in front of 20 people at the most. And he
brings it.
He brings it. And people would say, well, of course he's bringing it. He's a multimillionaire. And I'm always like, no, he's a multimillionaire because that's how he showed up.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So the
yes.
thing but it's probably one of the best examples of just bring it, right? No matter who your audience is, do the best, right? You don't know who's watching, right? But, it's always that it's the stuff that you do where people aren't watching that produces the results.
Absolutely. And I think as a parent, our kids are watching, right? So it's important that we realize they're watching our every move, every word, everything that we say. Are we hugging, connecting with our spouse? If we're not, then they're seeing that, they're experiencing that. And we've got to be mindful of how we are showing up as parents. So, okay, here we go. Let's summarize. Turning pro. Step number 1 is we decide to win. Step number 2 is we've got to study our actual business. Step number 3 is we want to study our market. Now, that market is the market that we serve. We want to study our industry. What are the trends? What's going on in our industry that we can apply? What does the industry look like 3, 5, 10 years from today? We want to practice our craft. Get on a regular practice schedule, hold our team accountable to continually growing and improving. We want to keep score. We want to make sure that our team knows, are we winning or are we losing? Number 7 here, we want to make sure that we establish standards that we will not compromise. Really important. We want to innovate. how do we remain relevant for the long term? We innovate. We use our industry knowledge. We identify what's important to our market, and we understand our business. And then we either bring in the skills necessary to help take us to that other area in our business or practice that's going to grow. We've got to continually be innovating and applying that. Remember, there's always another level. And then we've got to show up and lead if we expect to be relevant for the long term in our industry. So that is, I'm sure there are many other points that we could add from a Turning Pro perspective, but those are the highlights that I was able to come up with just thinking about the Turning Pro concept. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Russ, I thought that was a great presentation. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions too. Just, so how does someone engage a Pinnacle? What would engage a Pinnacle guide like yourself? I mean, what are the steps?
Yeah. So, well, obviously I've got my information plastered all over here. People know you. As far as these concepts apply to that. So I always talk with the leaders that I'm potentially going to serve and work with to say, first, you've got to decide that this is something that you want to do, because it's going to take time, and we've got to be patient, and we've got to decide as leaders that we want to implement the system. So obviously, Russ at ownyourcategory.com. We've got the Pinnacle website that has a list of guides that are all over the United States and in other countries. It's about selecting the right guide for your business as well. So we want to make sure that's our fundamental belief at Pinnacle, is that we want to have our clients choose the guide that they feel is best. And then the guide, with their experience and knowledge, is going to bring the appropriate tools. Some of the systems that are out there are kind of a one size fits all, shoehorn you into a system, as opposed to, stepping back and saying, okay, what does the business need? And then bringing those tools to the organization.
Awesome.
For sure.
And
What else?
Well, let's see. What's the biggest, what would you think is the differentiator between you? I mean, what makes you a great coach? I mean, when we talk about your background, but what do you think makes you a great coach?
Well, that's a bit of a loaded question, but I might be biased, but there are so many great coaches that are out there and apply. I think it definitely brings enthusiasm and energy to whoever I'm working with. I expect people to do the work. I will hold people accountable. That's an important component. I'm really passionate about this work, and I always say, if you're not going to do the work, then I'm not going to do the work with you, right? Let's move on, because the idea is to help these leaders get into a better spot. And that's what a business operating system can do. It can really help to align the entire organization. It can help the leader to be able to step back and do what they do best to drive value in the organization. So I'm really passionate about the leader, first deciding to win. Again, I'm deciding to apply it, and then I'll hold them accountable to execute. So my process is this. I'll talk about my process right quick. First thing I do is I work with the leader to get them really clear on what they want. What's the vision that they have? What's the legacy that they want to leave as a result of this business that they're building? Then we move into implementing the business operating system in their business. We create that 7-3-1-90 plan that we talked about. We get really clear on what the structure of the organization. We call it structured accountability. We use talent assessment to really get clear on the people that are in the organization. We get really clear on what our purpose is. Why are we doing what we're doing? What's going to encourage and excite our people to get out of bed and come to work every day? And then we want to define our playbook, right? So we want to consistently deliver value to our clients. So that's the playbook component of the Pinnacle process. And then we want to make sure that we've got that performance down. So we've got our KPIs, or we call them kept promise indicators, but we want to make sure that we're keeping score. And then that score. So if we have communicated to the team, here's where we're going. If we have identified what good looks like, what the score is, now we have an opportunity to hold people accountable. So oftentimes we're not communicating the expectations, we're not measuring our progress, and therefore it's really difficult to hold people in our organization accountable because we haven't defined and we haven't measured our performance overall, right? So we want to make sure that we do those three things, and then show up. I always say we want to hire adults and we want to be adults. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that many organizations have, is that we don't have adult conversations. We're not talking about the challenges. We are passive aggressive in our communication. We know that someone is not serving the organization in the right way, but maybe we're scared of them because they are the biggest producer, or they make the biggest impact for doing the work once we get the work in the door from an operations perspective. So we end up being held hostage because we are unwilling to have those difficult conversations. And so if you get the right coach, you get a coach that's going to work with you to help you to craft the messaging that you're going to have, but to show up and say, this is what the organization needs to move forward. Oh, do it. Have the conversation.
Yeah, I see that a lot in organizations nowadays because of the labor shortage. The thing is we're all business owners are, hey, the biggest challenge to pretty much any growing business today is getting, A players, right? And one of the sayings of Pinnacles is A players are free, right?
That's right.
But getting those A players are challenging. And so we all, I've seen business owners, I've done it myself, where, hey, well, this guy will have to do, and it's always a mistake.
That's it. So I'll give you an example of that is, in the restaurant industry, all you hear about is we don't have people. We got to shorten our hours and we're reducing our menus, and there's all kinds of activities that are going on in the restaurant industry. Well, I went to Hall's Chop House there in downtown Greenville, South Carolina on Saturday evening. And I'm telling you what, they had staff flying all over that place. And I had an opportunity to talk to the manager, the floor manager. So each floor has its own manager and assistant manager, right? I mean, it's so each floor. So David was the floor manager at the Halls area that I was. And I said, David, how do you find the people? Like, how do you train them? How do you engage them? Because everyone, by the time we sat down at the table, I counted, we were touched by 7 people. 7 people said, welcome to Halls. How's your day? There was an interaction, like a meaningful interaction, not just bumping shoulders on the way past, right? And that happened by the time we sat down, 7 people. And so I asked David, I'm like, how do you find the people? There's a labor shortage out there, David. Do you guys not see that? And he said, it really goes to the culture that we want to build and create here. And that culture, that Ritz-Carlton feel that the former, he passed away, but the founder of the Hall's Chop House, I think it was Bill Hall, he had that mindset, that Ritz-Carlton elevated experience. And he said, we're so busy. He said, we're the busiest business in Greenville. In that, you said you can't hardly get a reservation here. And so we're able to attract talent because we're winning. Who doesn't want to be a part of a winning organization? And again, the people were nice and just amazing to interact with. And I was just taken back by the level of service that that they have there, but the intentionality. And he gave me a great book, by the way. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality. And so I've been listening to that book. And again, it's along the same concept of, if you want to go further, if you want to deliver excellence in a way that just blows people's mind, then be unreasonable in expecting the best. And then people will, naturally select in or select out based on how they are intending to show up or how they want to show up in life.
It's a great example. I mean, winning will get, but people have to know you're winning too. So, but winning is big. If you think about like Dabo Sweeney at Clemson, I was talking to a big alumni. They estimate that his presence on the campus created over $1.something billion of economic activity from people coming in to go to Clemson, right? From all the different things that happened because, hey, he brought the national spotlight onto the Clemson arena. I mean, so, in fact, he's got a great podcast I highly recommend with Ed Milet.
Oh, that is awesome, man. When you listen to that, you're fired up. You're ready to run through a wall when you get on listening to that podcast.
I
Yeah.
called someone, and this is after he signed a $10 million a year contract or whatever, a big Clemson alumni. And I said, I determined the most underpaid person in South Carolina. And he was like, who's that? And I said, it's Dabo Sweeney. I said, because if he was running a company, he'd probably make $30 million a year.
Yes, for sure. Hey, do any of the participants have questions?
We've been asking, but there's no questions right now. And I
Okay.
think, so,
All
what
right.
we'll
Yeah.
do is, we'll email this out. We have a lot of people that registered that just want what's great is Josh will probably edit most of me out of it. He'll get it nice and concise, where people can watch it. And I know there was a few Pinnacle coaches that also asked us to email it to them.
Right on. Very good. Well, Mike, I
thank you,
always
Russ. I'm
appreciate
very
you and
grateful for your
enjoy
time.
being with you. Love your energy and your enthusiasm and just your go after attitude. It always keeps me inspired and fired up. So appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you. And you have a great day too. Bye-bye.
All right. See you.
Oh, oops, there is one question. Hold
Oh, there
on.
is? All right. What do we got?
How do you keep such a fantastic looking beard, Russ?
Oh, Steven, you character. You better be on Pinnacle practice today, Steven. We'll see you in a bit, buddy.
Thanks, Stephen. You guys have a great day. We appreciate y'all.
See ya.